And it happened. So here we are. It's 1 p.m. Eastern U.S. time. I'm Rand Hoppy. I'm the executive director of the Jack Kirby Museum.
I'm Tom Kraft, the president of the Jack Kirby Museum, and we are with
Bechara. A Kirby collector and an art dealer in the United States.
Yes.
So I do it all.
So it's just great to have Bechara here. We've been Bechara's been helping us out probably since day one of our digital archive. I think when I showed up at San Diego the first year and announced the Kirby Museum as an entity, I remember Bechara, you coming over to me and saying, "Come and walk with me. Let's have a chat."
That sounds like him.
Yep. And we walked up and down the aisles, and you were like, "Yeah, who are you, dude?" And I'm like, "It's me." And look, whatever. So it was great, and you've always been such a big help and making connections for us, and really just adding so much, helping us add so much to our digital archive. It's really thank you so much.
It's an honor to be a part of what you're doing. It really is. I wish everybody had the opportunity to give you guys the art to scan and the history and the interviews and money to keep on going, which is very important. You guys do a great service for the collectible. And, as we know now, it's not just about the collectible. It's part of our part of the society that we live in with the movies and the shows.
Yes.
It's a worldwide phenomenon.
Yes.
So,
and I'll just take a brief. I'll step back for a moment and just say we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and on Twitter / Periscope. So if anybody has any comments, once any of our friends are out there to say hello, please allow us to ignore you if you say ridiculous things. But it's always a pleasure to hear from you out there in the comments. So feel free to say hi, and we'll put them up on the screen, or we'll share them with Bechara or
to get answers. Sure.
Yeah, that's right. If you have questions.
Yes.
So Bechara, so what is your Jack Kirby story? How did you end up realizing who Jack Kirby was?
Well, all right. I've given a little bit of my history before to a few, but I'm happy to do a quick history of my love of comics and art. I was born in Beirut, Lebanon, and I discovered comics at a very young age in Arabic and in French. And I don't really recall early on initially buying up Jack's work because I didn't recognize it. I just recognized Marvel and DC, those characters. But it was when we came to this country in the Boston area, the first thing I did was I discovered a lot of TV stations that I did not have back home.
Oh, nice.
And the second thing I discovered were comic books in plenty. So I immediately, I didn't speak English at the time, but of course I had my mom get me some comics, which were actually, there was a newsstand not far down the street. And of course I tackled those immediately in the early 70s. And of course, who do I discover but this guy, Jack King Kirby. And so I remember,
I've heard of him.
What? Jack King Kirby? I've seen that over, later, I would see that, in the beginning I didn't, but later on I recognized it. But I remember the Jack Kirby. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the guy that I love.
Right.
I discovered all the new, first it was the Fourth World stuff, because that's when I started reading again in this country, those books. And my God, they're just, as a kid back then, I'm like, oh my, I couldn't get enough.
Yeah.
So and to this day, that's really, if you want to attribute why I'm not in a different vocation, because I've turned this into a vocation because I was collecting mostly initially, and most of my collection, even though I collect other things, Jack Kirby art, because of the nostalgia and the feel that it gives me.
Right.
I mean, it's when I look at something that I might have hanging in my office, mostly in my home and other places, there's no greater rush than bringing me back to my youth.
Yeah.
So it's that's why I do this as a dealer, but really I view myself as a collector first, and Jack's influence is probably the greatest thing on my collection of really influential characters and stories and art. Clearly.
Cool.
And what do you have, like a favorite character or a character?
Like when I'll tell you, initially, when you're collecting, you collect anything.
Right.
I would collect. I'm like, I see something that I recognized, years back, 30 years ago. I just buy it and like,
Yeah.
oh, this is fun. I'll show you something. This is, I have bigger and smaller and less expensive, but when I first came here, the influence was the Fourth World, and Fourth World to me were really moving because he was able to create on his own and create things that only he could imagine.
Yeah.
And of course, the greatest of the Fourth World to me were not just Demon and Commandi and Forever People, but and others, Mr. Miracle, but New Gods. Wow.
Yeah.
New Gods were just extraordinary. And there was one character that I related to, on many levels. And that was this character here. And I was fortunate enough to get a great example. As a matter of fact, his first example, I was able to find it and lucky enough to own it. And this character means a lot to me, even though I may have more expensive pieces, but this hits close to home for things that when I grew up, the bug.
Oh wow.
Now
That's great.
Now it's just he Forager was just anybody that was misunderstood and coming from another country or coming from another land who still looked different. This spoke to me.
Yep.
And the art, of course, spoke to me, and the story. I mean, if you read New Gods 9, and well, of course, even all the New Gods issues, but this is just
powerful. It's a great one.
A powerful story. So things like this, like you find something like this, and I have it hanging, but I mean, right now things are. I pulled some stuff that was going to be reframed, so I'm able to share some pieces.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So that's what moves you as a collector. Now I'll show you one that most people don't really care about, but as a kid growing up, Captain America meant a lot to me, but so did Bucky and the Golden Age of all things.
Cool.
I, of course, collected comic books. He created a little thing called Liberty Legion.
Yeah.
Not everybody knows who Liberty Legion is, but that's what it is, to be a collector of, characters and stories that meant a lot.
Yeah.
Of all things, for me, meant a lot.
Yeah.
So having the cover to, the first time they get together, it was a group of Golden Age characters.
Right.
Sort of the to sort of emulate when Cap and those invaders stories would have all Bucky was in there with Toro and Human Torch and Submariner. So it's things like this that meant a lot to me. Later on, Norse mythology was huge for me.
Oh, wow.
I loved I loved all the Greek and Roman and all that mythology was like fantasy. I mean, the comics were fantasy.
Yeah.
So when I discovered Thor, I'm like, this guy, all right, he's got the big hammer.
Yeah.
I loved, anytime he faced off with a villain, he's, swinging that big thing and it comes back to you. I'm like, this is it. I love it. Let me see if I can, I used to get all the Journey and Mysteries, all the Thors. And I was able to get I liked interior. I have a lot of interior pages, mean a lot to me. And I figured I'll show you an interior page from Thor that meant a lot to me.
Cool. Oh, man.
Magneto. That's
Look
awesome.
At that.
Yes. A nice battle page.
Chick Stone.
With Chick Stone inks, who
Sweet.
Was probably the best inker for, and come on, taking on Magneto.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
And, let's just stop right there and
You smell the roses.
I mean, come on, and just the power of that hammer, and I mean, not many people can take on Magneto, but
Yeah.
Thor could. And then later, of course, I'm lucky I'm in this. The reason I stayed in the collectible was it gave me the opportunity, because the price kept on going up, and it gave me the opportunity to actually trade and buy things, sell things to get things, of more value. Things have gotten rather expensive, but luckily, being in the collectible and also dealing, it helped me really nurture my collection. So
Hey, Bechara, somebody was asking, was that Journey into Mystery 109?
It is, yes. It's clearly Journey Mystery 109.
Okay.
So here is a cover that I was able to procure. And so I've always wanted a twice up, I have small art covers.
Sure.
I always wanted a nice Thor twice up cover.
Holy smokes.
And that's the first appearance of Ulick, and they're battling away. So, the battle cover was, and I was lucky enough to get Stan Lee to sign it. It was already signed by Jack, and having them both sign it also was having
That's great. What a great piece.
Was fun.
Yeah.
Yes. And we'll do one more piece on show and tell, and we can talk about other things.
Okay.
My favorite character in all of comicdom also resonated. The character resonated with me, being coming from another country and feeling
Sure.
It's tough for a kid.
Yeah.
Not speaking the language. So this character was my favorite character, and if I can honestly say that it's if I was gonna go after and be lucky enough to own one piece of art, this would have been it anyway. And I was lucky enough to run into it at a San Diego Comic-Con, but I can honestly say that I wasn't the first one that had the opportunity to get it. And by the end of the Comic Con, I was able to get it and put it in the collection and really enjoy it. And my favorite character, and it was just framed up. So sorry, I brought it here before it's all ready to be framed up again. So this is a good opportunity to show it off.
Right. Oh.
Da.
Wow.
The FF.
Oh man.
Beautiful.
So I've been enjoying this for a long time, and hopefully forever.
Yeah.
Surfer is my all-time favorite character.
Wow. That is just
Clearly,
really beautiful Kirby Sinnott.
Yeah, and I love the Watcher was also so intriguing to me.
Yeah.
an all black background. So, but I also have a lot of pages that are not worth too much and that I love
Sure. Yeah.
maybe as much as this one, but pieces that I do love as a collector, I don't. Sometimes I buy $300 and $400 pages that, like, oh, they speak to me.
Yeah.
I remember them. That's what's great about collecting.
Yeah. So what do you have to say about collecting, though? Like, when people are interested in that kind of thing?
Yeah, how did they get started in the, if they're interested and they had comic books and now they want to buy art, what's the path for them?
Well, nowadays, you've got a lot of options. You can go, certainly eBay is a great way
Oh, that's true.
to start. Because if you're somewhere in the world that you just have access to a computer, you can go on there. Auction houses, certainly, but they tend to handle more expensive pieces. So that may not be the way, but it's a good way to look at some premium pieces. There are dealers around the world. Of course, I have my website for original art, and there are individuals that have sites to show off their collection. There you can jump in and even as low as, like, let's say you're a Archie fan, for the low price of, like, let's say $300, somebody can jump in to the art collectible and buy a page from Pep for around 300, as low as $300, and this is from the 60s. So
Yeah.
if you grew up in the 90s, and something as simple as this for
So Superboy, yeah.
$150,
Great.
nice shot Superboy. There are things that are affordable for everybody. Conan page, probably from 1989 for a few $100.
Right.
There's price points for everybody, and in comic art. You can get strip art by, whether it's the Simpsons, or if you remember the Flintstones, or for $50 to $100, and frame something up like that, all the way up to tens of thousands of
Right.
dollars.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's nostalgia is what it's about. We're a country that loves nostalgia, and whether you're buying baseball cards or stamps or something that brings back memories,
Yeah.
and good ones, then we're willing to pay for it a little bit. But it's also not just this country. It's people from Spain and Italy and England,
Right.
and Hong Kong,
France,
and certainly France, one of the Belgium, and on and on. There are collectors from Australia and India, and so it's especially because of the movies and the Netflix shows and the TV shows. It's I travel a lot, and I see Captain America image, the
Shield.
the shield everywhere.
Everywhere. Yeah.
I see the actual covers on T-shirts
Right.
Yes.
recognized all over the world.
Yeah.
So it's become sort of a worldwide, spreading that part of our culture, which is from our youth.
So we have a question about Jack Kirby art. What's the most expensive piece ever it's gone for so far?
You aware of anything like that? Like what the highest number might be for a Kirby page or cover? Just in general, not necessarily.
There's people have paid hundreds of thousands, in the high hundreds of thousands of dollars,
right,
for Kirby, for some Kirby covers, in the high hundreds of thousands,
right.
And some, if they came on the market, would surpass that.
Sure,
So,
no doubt. Yeah.
But most we don't know where they are.
Right.
Most covers, whether it's FF, let's say 1 through 50, there may only be a couple that exist, a handful.
Yeah.
Same as other, the Avengers 1 through, whatever that Jack did. Certainly the Kirby ones are usually the earlier renditions of the characters.
Yeah.
So those, we don't know if they were destroyed, given away.
Right.
Usually when something like the 72 cover appears, it's by accident that it survives.
Mm-hmm.
That particular cover survived with 2 other covers one was a Kirby, Thor 151, which was the Destroyer, and the other one was Daredevil 37, which was a Gene Colan cover. They walked into a woman walked into an animation gallery in Florida.
Wow.
About 20 years ago, and apparently her father had passed away and left these for her. So her father apparently told her that he had gone to Marvel Studios, in the late 60s, and I think from what she said, that had asked for those specific covers, and they had either had asked for them, or that's what he was able to rummage through some, and those were the best that were available. And I'm not sure how it played out, but he wound up with them. Back then they might have not been worth much, if anything.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's how they happen to have survived. So a lot of these early ones may not exist, or maybe sitting somewhere that
Hidden. Yes.
There's another question, but I'm going to embellish it a little bit. Do you have anything that you know of personally that you kind of is a grail that you can't get, or something? Like, is there something out there, that a Kirby piece that you're like, man, I really wish I had that?
Probably a lot of them, right?
Yeah, well,
like a grail kind of a thing. Do you have?
Most of the ones that I would want don't exist. So,
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you have to have 72, and I have a few other big pieces that I have that I would want those, but I have them.
Right. I kind of figured you did.
There's there in the Kirby world, we're talking. Yeah, of course. There's stuff in collections that, I don't want to wish to have them. I just enjoy that they exist. I wish more. I wish more of them existed. Avengers 4 comes to mind immediately.
Mm-hmm.
4, which is the first time, Captain America is sort of resurrected by the Avengers, found in the big block of ice. My gosh,
Yeah, that would be awesome.
But we actually don't even know where the art, the Avengers 4 art is, let alone where the cover. So there's a lot of FF4 also.
Right.
And certainly all those early FF covers, we don't know where they are.
Right.
Yeah.
So are covers more valuable? It sounds like they are than splashes and interior. Can you talk a little bit about types of art?
Yeah, there's probably some ratio that it's hard to nail down exactly. I mean, you can have a $100 interior page, which is a page that like I showed you from an interior page which just has many panels, for instance, and then that might be $100. And to get the splash, like the first page from a story might be, because it's one big image, but if it's from the interior of the story, maybe 3 to 5 times more expensive. So it might be $300 to $500 for that. And then to get the actual cover, well, that's the thing that everybody remembers more than anything else.
Yeah,
right.
Usually because it's on, it's it's the cover. You recognize
on the racks. It's on the stands. Yeah,
that's why everybody sees, and that might be, 3 times to 5 times more than the actual splash.
Right.
So there's some ratios that exist. It's not perfect, because if you get something very special, then you can throw those ratios out the window, because in an auction situation or in a zealot situation, you have a lot of zealots and fanatics. That's why we're called fans.
Yeah, that's right.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Sometimes, I look at something. Oh, I see something in an auction, and I'm just going to bid, 1,000 for this.
Mm-hmm.
And you wind up bidding 3,000. I'm like, what did I just do?
Now I got to pay for this.
Whatever multiple that might be,
Yeah.
So using different figures. So, it's one of those things in life. We are fortunate that sometimes we have money that we can set aside for our passion.
Yes.
So
Tom Morehouse says hello.
Tom Morehouse.
Hey.
Tom is a great lover of Kirby.
Yes, indeed.
Goes way back, and he's got a lot of good memories, and the days where he could walk into, he lives near New York, walk into the Phil Seuling shows of the 70s and buy, pages from the early FF, if he was lucky enough to find them.
Yep.
$50 to $150.
That's right.
They're worth, tens of thousands of dollars now. So
the market has obviously increased since the 80s, when a lot of this stuff started becoming available.
The stuff started becoming available. It was always available to some degree. It was available in the 70s if you were around a certain, usually the New York, greater New York area had them available in the 70s, or some of the old time auctions had them available, because that's where all the companies were, DC and Marvel, and the early conventions were in the greater New York, or not New York area, in New York, in Manhattan, and you were able to see some back then. Certainly by the 80s, it was still not easy. I started collecting the art in the 80s and looking for it. It was not easy back then. Certainly by the early 90s, when the auction houses started taking a hand in it, Sotheby's and Christie's, in New York City, more of it started coming out because the prices started getting elevated, and then it was, it was a slow progression. More and more started coming out. It was sort of a very niche collectible, because the vintage, the old stuff, was just really not around.
Mm-hmm.
It was hard to find, and the collecting was sort of an underground collecting, where it was through word of mouth, or one guy would put an ad in the Comic Buyer's Guide, or you would know who this dealer is because he had a connection to Ramita, or a connection to the companies themselves.
Yeah,
where you could go. I didn't have this privilege, and I wish I did, to actually go to Jack's house in LA and go and negotiate with his wife Roz and come out of there with something.
Yeah.
And I know many a collector back when they would go over to Jack's house and walk out of there with a small little, something here, something there.
Yeah.
I'll reveal during this podcast, or I'm sorry, during this Facebook Live and YouTube show for the Kirby Museum that in about a month or so on my site, I had the privilege to be involved in buying and helping sell the largest Kirby collection in the world, and
Wow.
it was the Tony Christopher collection. It was 900 Kirby pieces,
Wow.
and
Wow.
I think I mean, I have a list. 90%, 95% was large art, twice up, early stuff.
Wow.
So I will be making that. You know, we will be releasing portions of that collection so people can see. Like, my God, wow! Look at this history, and he owned it.
But he had a relationship with Jack and Roz. He would go over like once a month or something and pick up more art. Or
Yeah, well, that wasn't the only way. Tony was very astute and loved Jack. That he would go in, pick up a pile of art at one shot, and then but he also bought at all the early Sotheby's and Christie's, and I remember trading him, you know, the Slash to FF3,
Right.
the interiors, you know, to the origin stories to FF3. I've traded him the complete books to many complete books, you know, starting with Avengers 9 and X-Men, early X-Men books, and so he was a collector of purely only Jack's work, and I would get stuff that I'm like, okay, I got this other piece that I really like. I helped him in his collection,
Right.
and on the site we're going to be revealing a lot of Jack's, you know, what he had from that collection, and it's important for us, you know, on a historic level and on a collecting level to know what actually exists.
so, Crackles just asked, did he have any complete issues?
He had a ton of complete issues.
Oh wow.
We're talking early Avengers complete issues, early X-Men complete issues, early Journey into Mystery complete issues. I won't reveal all this stuff. Early Hulk complete issues. It was a master collection that will never, you know, 10% of it won't be achievable.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe 10%. So yes, he's, you know, we'll be running an interview with Tony also. He's great to learn a lot about Jack's work, and he's happy to come on and do that for us. So
very cool. That's great news.
Yes, I think the more we know about Jack and the collectors and furthering the collectible, you know, it's a love affair for a lot of us. So, and we should support the museum.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's right. Oh, Dan Fogel says hi from Twitter.
I'm surprised Dan is awake. No, I'm only kidding.
Hey, all right. Well,
no. Dan loves most art, and I know I was able to procure a nice Kirby piece many years ago.
Oh.
Like 25 to 30 years ago. Dan had a wonderful Kirby cover from the FF in his collection. So I thank Dan for that.
It's cool. Wow. I can't wait to see the list or portions of the list or whatever from the Christopher collection.
A lot of people can't wait for that.
I know.
Been asking me for years, and you know, I think it's important to share that. I think it's about time.
Yeah.
So yes. On the site we'll be making that reveal, and plus the interview will be quite fascinating.
So, can you talk a little bit about the transition from like getting online and having a website compared to the old days, like in the 90s, early 90s, when it was all, like you said, word of mouth and advertising. Now everything's online, so the dynamic has changed.
It's sad. I'm not the best at it yet. I'm trying to get better. I'm really an old timer in many ways. I like the personal interplay personally.
Sure.
Of collecting and going to conventions everywhere. I'm trying to adapt myself. So of course now, most of it is online. But if you have but there's still a portion of it that's interpersonal, that people are very, they want to keep things to themselves. But what's good about the internet is it opens it up to people from all over the world to be able to have access to the art and this collectible, which is good. Even though I'm stuck in my ways to a degree, and now I have to do things differently. But it is good in the sense that it brings everybody closer in the collectible to be able to take advantage of pieces that were not available to them. So yeah, in the old days, I'd go to a comic book show and I'd ask everybody, "Hey, do you have any artwork? Hey, do you have any artwork? Hey, do you have any artwork?" And every once in a while, people would surprise me. I'm like, "Would you like to sell that?" No. Will you let me know when you do sell that?
Right.
So it's. I was fortunate back then to pick up pieces, both from Jack's work and others, by just word of mouth. And now it's the only tough things for collectors and dealers alike, and that most things wind up in auction. So the auctions have really taken in a lot of art, which is good and bad. Good in the sense that it can expose them to all kinds of people everywhere, and bad in the sense that it's more fun for collectors and dealers alike, of course, to have access to some collections of some pieces that the auctions don't get. But it's the way of the world. When eBay opened those doors, sort of a Pandora's box that you can't close.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a fun arena still. There are things I was able to get in auctions that weren't available to me. So yeah, it gives and it takes.
So Paul Gravette is asking, can you what collectors should plan for their collections after they're gone? Tough questions we most want to avoid. Ideally, they should go to the massive brick and mortar of the Kirby Museum.
Well, listen, what would be better than if there was an actual brick and mortar for the Kirby Museum? There's the legacy that's left here is very important. Someday, I hope the Kirby Museum is able to, maybe in conjunction with another entity, be able to form something that we can all go see. So, but what they're doing now is very important for the collectible. And preserving these memories and these images and all the things they do. But I just had a call a few days ago with a big collector that is considering someday leaving some of his pieces behind, and he feels that in some years to come, a lot more museums will be participating in this collectible and taking pieces, and some of them will be buying pieces at auctions. Others will have them donated, and I don't know if you've noticed, but around the world, There's been a number, for instance, since we're on the Jack Kirby subject, there's been a number of festivals, art festivals, and
Yeah.
a number. There was one last year in Portugal,
Yes.
the Amadora Art Festival that featured Jack's work, and there is a number of moving displays, art displays,
Right.
comic book art displays around the world the last few years that have featured either all Marvel or all DC. And, around the world, they're almost doing a better job than we are here in this country.
And you've helped contribute to some of these shows too with your art so that people can actually see it, right?
Yes. Privately, I've contributed. A few shows I've given a number of pieces,
Lending pieces.
Yeah, and but I think that's important because the more exposure, the more people will have a love of the art. If you don't see the art, you're not going to care about it.
Mm-hmm.
My first foray into art was as a comic book collector. And I went over to buy comics from an individual's collection in Massachusetts, and I saw artwork all over his house, framed up, and I'm like, wow! I mean, this resonated with me
Mm-hmm.
because as a kid, I took my comics and taped them. I mean, I put them in plastic bags that I made myself, and I taped them on my wallpaper on two different walls. So for me, I'm very visual, and I love looking at art.
Yeah.
And so, back then it was comics at the age of 12 and 13 and 14.
Yeah.
And when I saw the art everywhere, I'm like, oh, I know that character. I'm like, I love that character. Oh, what's that one? And what's this? And what's that? So it was that exposure. And then I would go back to this guy's house and buy more comics and ask him more questions about the art. And, it was that exposure that had me go, oh, I want that. I want something like that hanging in my house or hanging in my office so I can enjoy it. That's what's great about comic art. Comic books, you need a big collection to really appreciate. Mostly. Nowadays, maybe not as much. You might specify certain things. But in art, you can buy a piece a year or two pieces and go, oh, I'm an art collector.
Right.
And these are pieces that I love. Either you frame them up or you put them in a portfolio, and so it's a wonderful way to capture, things that are that you're passionate about or that bring back those memories. So
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
And that's why you called it nostalgic investments.
Well, I wish it was called nostalgic cheap stuff. Then I could own more, but as the prices kept on going up, and people, I'm like, my God, it's like an investment. So who knew that? Every time these pieces go up higher, I'm like, oh, how do I buy more for myself? Then I have to sell others to buy more for me and enjoy. So it's a never-ending pursuit of things that you enjoy.
Right. And you traveled all over the world, basically. I was with you in Saudi Arabia last year in Riyadh, showing art to people that had never seen any of that. It was a great experience.
Yes. I was fortunate to be invited to put a display of original art up, and this was their first foray into a comic book convention, and specifically, more the girls than anything else were so excited.
Yes,
the young woman there. I shouldn't have called them girls. They were young. Well, to me, everybody is young. There's young woman there, just flipping through portfolios. Wow. Thank you for, we're constantly being told, thank you, right? Thank you.
Right.
For coming.
And they would point to the different characters in the art. Go, I know this, I know that. And they were afraid to turn the pages and all. They're very, very polite people.
Very, very wonderful. They were wonderful.
Yes.
We had the best time just showing and talking to them and their backgrounds, and they're so happy to finally had a show like this. So we were very excited to be there. So.
And they all spoke English really well, which was amazing.
Oh, of course. We're a little too isolated in this country. We should speak, multiple languages. But yes, also Portugal last year, we were invited there, and we were able to display actually Kirby art at that show.
Yeah.
And other places, Italy, we've displayed some art there. They love their art. In Europe, my gosh, they love comic books. They love comic art. They love Kirby.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice. It's nice to see that around the world.
Yes.
It's so for me, it's a wonderful collectible, and we're lucky that it also holds its value. You buy something, I wouldn't tell people just to buy something as an investment, like my company name. Don't do that. Even though it's turned out like that, the prices have all, every few years, every year, things have gone up. But buy something that, like that speaks to you.
Yep.
You're like, oh, wow, that's, that makes me feel good. I remember that character. I just sold a Thundercats page to somebody for about $400. Oh, I can't believe I have a Thundercats page. I grew up on Thundercats. I'm like, wonderful. I'm glad to have you have that passion for it. So there's nothing better. So.
Well, that's great. I mean, I'm feeling like I'm looking at the clock and saying 46 minutes. Why, if anybody has any final questions or anything, this has been a really great tour of the world of original art and Bechara, and just really getting a sense of what that's all about. And it's not just it is about nostalgia. So let's just leave it at that.
It's true.
Well, yeah. Did Tom mention that he collects Kirby art?
I have a couple pieces.
I have 2. And the museum has 3.
No, I didn't mean to take you out of that one. I mean,
I know.
A lot more than a couple. That's right.
No, I know.
So we all have that passion. For Jack. How can we not? He created so many of these characters that we love. I mean, my gosh, we can appreciate other artists, but he's not just an artist; he's a creator.
Yes,
that's why we love him so much. So,
do you think that the movies brought in a lot more collectors, people that didn't start with comic books and maybe saw the Avengers, Endgame, Infinity Wars, and Spider-Man, and all that, and started collecting?
Oh yeah, I think that first it had the profound effect of affecting the comic book market. That's the first thing it did.
Sure.
People were going back and buying up, the first appearance of Spider-Man Fantasy 15s, or the X-Men brought in Hulk 181 collectors, which is the first Wolverine, and any time there's a new character being introduced, Luke Cage, Hero for Hire 1, because Luke Cage is going to be, and then so all these characters, and from there, absolutely, it brought in more collectors looking for images, because collecting comics is fun, and collecting art is fun in a different way, because you actually, I know attorneys in New York that hang up pieces in their offices. And all forms of collectors out there. You don't have to have a expensive piece. You just have a piece that others will recognize. And nowadays, you have a Batman or a Fantastic Four or an Avengers or a Black Panther piece up. People know it and recognize it. Matter of fact, here's a little, since we mentioned Saudi Arabia, and this is a sad footnote because of the passing of that wonderful actor that portrayed Black Panther.
Yeah.
Chadwick
Boseman.
Chadwick, yes. Saudi Arabia's first foray into the movie world, which they did not allow movies into that country. The first movie that was allowed a few years ago was Black Panther.
Wow.
Wow.
So that says a lot right there.
It does.
That should tell us all that, this genre means a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It means a lot. And so.
All right. Well, I think we're going to say thanks to B for joining us. And,
thank you very much.
Really appreciate your time and all the help you've given us over the years. And
yes.
We will, because you are the patron saint of the digital archive. I tagged you with that Thursday, I think, and
I had nothing to do with that one, but
it was all me.
It was pretty funny. Thank you, though.
But we really appreciate it. So thanks a lot. And
everybody, please support the museum. They do a lot of work, and they don't get much for it.
That's right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right. Goodbye. We're going to move on to the next one. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.